disrupted.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So there's this guy by the name of Cernovich, who, after doing a bit of a search, he's a political commentator, a conservative commentator, who engages in a bit of conspiracy theories. At least that's what the Google search says, but you know how misleading Google can get, especially being involved with the security state and Wikipedia, and you know about all that. So that's what they claim this guy is. But he recently made attention because he had a personal conflict. He had some troubles. And you know, there's a saying that goes that you become the most paranoid, you become the most irrational when you're in direct conflict. When you are personally for self-interest, you are in harm's way, you are in conflict of something. And sometimes you don't always have the best judgment. Sometimes in quick reaction, you go to the worst case scenario. You try to combat in whatever means necessary. And this, I don't know what to make of it, other than the fact that this is kind of a shot in the dark, if you will, on a solution to a problem that he recently had. And it is a growing problem, but I don't think this is the smart solution. So here's Mark Cernovich, about to do a video rant here about the problem and the crime rate with cardiac conversion theft when people steal parts of a car. And it is a growing issue. It is something, to note, and we need something to resolve it. But listen to what his reaction to this is.
I support the death penalty for breaking into cars and tearing off catalytic converters. And that's not clickbait, and here's why.
So right off the bat, this is already a joke as is, because he claims this is not clickbait. This is the disclaimer of his is it's not clickbait, but I suggested capital punishment for car part theft. It's not clickbait, but I'm going to over-exaggerate this situation to the point that we need to slaughter people with the death penalty because of car part theft. But it's not clickbait, according to him. That's a very wild disclaimer there. That's a wild disclaimer there. Like, I support the death penalty for this action for, there's far worse crimes that we could suggest the death penalty. And again, suggesting the death penalty should be the worst case scenario, like the last option you should be thinking of. For something that, there's more worse crimes out there. But here's his explanation of this.
We had a plumber scheduled to come out because there's some massive flooding happening, and we needed him to replace some pipes. He's not able to, so we had to get a water pump to pump it out, which I was able to do, but that meant that I didn't have to go to work. But since I have a laptop job, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is I remember people like my dad were at the financial margins, could not afford to miss a day of work. Right? People can't afford to miss a day of work. That creates a whole load of downstream problems. How are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to pay your mortgage? How are you going to buy your groceries? Let's talk about the plumber.
Let's talk about maybe the economy, and if we altered the economy to make it better and beneficial for everybody, they wouldn't have this problem. They wouldn't have a situation where if an emergency happens, or you had to miss a day of work because of illness, because of personal family situations, you have an emergency, something happens, and you're not able to get to work, you're not going to be struggling. You're not going to be at dire straits because of missing a day's work. And what seems like to me, the direction where the story is going, it's not so much the thieves that are taking parts out of cars. it seems more like a punishment for people that didn't go to work. Like, hey, you didn't get to work, so we got to find someone to punish, and we're going to blame this on people supposedly stealing car parts because your ass didn't make it to the corporate conglomeracy and making us our quota, so you're responsible for this. Like, it's almost like he's trying to not say, but at the same time say that we should be punishing people that just don't work. Which, if you look at the legal system and the direction of where justice is heading towards, it's already that point. It's already a point where people that are working poor or in poverty are already punished for being in poverty. And this is the staple that goes around. This is why the legal system is such a joke, and this is why crime rate is such skyrocketing rates. This is why people are at such straits, at such desperation, that they're going to commit crimes. That's why they're stealing catalytic converters. That's why they're stealing hubcaps and the emblems of vehicles, because they're at such dire straits because the economy screwed them over. They're already being punished for being poor. So what else is there left? What else is there left? They're going to have to feed their families. They're going to need money to pay for food or their necessities, or if they're addicts, they're going to pay for their addiction somehow. So it's really a punishment for being poor. It's really a punishment for being poor. That's what the direction of what he's saying is going. And it's such irony. This is why the legal system is such a joke. You take, for example, the war on drugs. Was it really actually stopping the flowing of illegal narcotics entering the country? God, no. But who do they punish most when it came to the war on drugs? People in poor neighborhoods or the celebrities that were bragging about it on talk shows? I remember when Howard Stern was popular at the time and interviewed celebrities, and celebrities would come out and openly state about, house parties. They would go to Beverly Hills and hang out with Robert Downey Jr. and other addicts at the time, and they were, snorting up coke and doing meth and crack and all these other narcotics, and bragging about it. Openly bragging like, hey, I went to this house party with Lindsay Lohan and a bunch of strippers, and we did crack off their taints. It was amazing. Whoa! Or you get people like Hunter Biden or Matthew Perry, for example, not to, discriminate or rail against them. But, they were addicts. They knew they did illegal substances. Did they get punishment? No, they got a book deal. They got a book deal and rehab because they were treated like a human being. But if your friends, your families, your neighbors, if someone in your significant family group or your friends are suffering that same consequence, or suffering from an addiction that celebrities also entail, they get a jail sentence. They get criminal offense. They get help. We get criminal offense. So really, again, it's punishing the fact that you're poor. It's punishing the fact that you're in poverty and can't get away with crime. That's what it comes down to.
His car was broken into, dashboard was torn up. He's going to miss 2 or 3 days of work. He's self-employed. That means no money. 2 or 3 days. That means his bills get pushed back. Why? So some drug addict working for the cartels could steal? That's the choice we're making. That's the choice we're making.
What a jump of faith right there. What a jump of faith. Because if here's the thing, if you don't get to work on time and miss a day or 2 days, God forbid, then drug cartels are going to be pouring into your neighborhood and stealing way more than a dashboard. Again, we already have criminal offenses for people that steal personal property. We already have that in place. But the problem with this is, the problem with this is we are such in desperation. We're in a desperate state of economics that the crime rate is skyrocketing so much that cops aren't able to criminalize these people. They're not able to do so because there's such a high crime rate going right now because we are at a desperate state of time. And again, all this can be fixed if we just tweak our economy for the better. But no, we're going to suggest the death penalty, capital punishment, which we know is flawed and we know how corrupt it is. We're going to suggest the death penalty for you missing work. It's just, it's gone to the extreme of barbaric. Like, at this point, should we be suggesting death penalty for jaywalking? Should we be suggesting, beheading people for littering? Because that's what they do in, like, Saudi Arabia. That's what they do in North Korea. In those harsh countries that we always complain about and say how horrible life is over there and how we're lucky to be free in our free open society. But here you are suggesting that we turn into that theocratic dictatorship. Hey, if you're not into line, if you're not willing to stay within the bounds, you should die. You should get capital punishment. You're not allowed to be part of society. Which, hell, what happened with COVID, we were close to it. We were close to it what happened with the pandemic. They were trying to segregate people out of society and saying that you cannot take part of being a part of the community. You're no longer acceptable and recognized as a human being. They were trying to push concentration camps for people that were unvaccinated. And speaking on behalf of Canadians, as a Canadian myself, and what our government is doing, we're already halfway there. We're already halfway there. Because the MAIDS program is, again, another influence of punishing poor people. Because they're trying to push veterans towards suicide. They're trying to push, people with mental health issues towards suicide. People that can't pay their rent or their bills and homelessness. Just, commit suicide because there's no point to live. If you can't function in our society, you can't get into line and properly advocate to our way of life, then, go perish. Like, is that what you're trying to get towards?
To think it was barbaric, the Code of Hammurabi, and you'd read about Saudi Arabia decapitating criminals, and you would think, how barbaric. And I realize now why they do it, because you either execute criminals for property crimes, which, by the way, would end the crimes overnight because they would get the point. So you either execute them or you just let people suffer, because what happened to me...
By the way, they execute people in Saudi Arabia not because they're hijacking cars. It's not just criminals that are getting beheaded. It's literally people that wear the wrong clothing. Because if they're not by the book of whatever religion it is, like the Quran or the Torah or the Bible, or like, it's a theocratic dictatorship. If they're not 100% by the book, you will be punished. You will be punished, period. Like, there is no ounce of room. There's no ounce of freedom and individuality outside those means. So trying to compare America and how it needs to give the death penalty to petty theft, which, again, all can be fixed with simple tweaks to the economy to make it beneficial for everybody so that people wouldn't be so desperate to become criminals. You're turning into the Saudi Arabia theocratic dictatorship and conglomerating Hammurabi Code. Again, and all to point out that you missed a day of work. So again, all this has to do with punishing poor people. Which, again, we're already at that point. We're already at that point. Our Canadian eugenics program of the MAIDS suicide hotline, getting almost our entire population onto the verge of suicide. We're already there. We're already goddamn there.
Today is a minor inconvenience. Honestly, whatever. I'm not even a big deal to me in the grand scheme of things, but to the plumber, it's a big deal. The people like how I grew up, it's a big deal. To millions of people, the tens of million of people, it's a big deal.
You just heard, it's not a big deal to me, but I'm going to suggest this anyway because no one else is mentioning this. He's the only person I've ever seen suggesting that we need to go to the lengths of a death penalty, capital punishment for this. Again, we're going to the extreme realms for the most petty crimes when we have master war criminals walking among us, finger painting and living a normal life. We're championing war criminals right now. We're championing mass murderers as we're speaking. But no, because God forbid someone missed a day of work, there's a little inconvenience. That is when we have to criminally penalize to the point of a death penalty. Again, because poverty, they're trying to criminalize poverty. And since they can't really do that, they can't really make it illegal to be poor. That's kind of a stupid-ass concept. They do everything else to try to subverge that. Holy crap.
So we're making a choice, and the choice is that we're going to let everyone suffer so that people can commit crimes. And, oh, it's just a property crime. No, it isn't. It's a human rights violation because you're stealing people's ability to work. So we got to bring it back. Death penalty, no irony here, no cap. Bring it back.
And again, so if we're bringing back the death penalty, and we're going to mention human rights, because he said that, you know, if you stole the dashboard of your truck, yes, you know, it's property theft, and yes, there's already a criminal code and conduct to penalize the person that stole from your truck and your personal property. We already have a legal system in place because of that. But since we're mentioning about all this, should we not be giving the death penalty to bankers that illegally take mortgages and corrupt them to the point of kicking 5.1 million families out of their house? Should we be giving the death penalty to master war criminals that use countries as their own pawns to do proxy wars to slaughter people? Should we not give them the death penalty? Or how about just in the recent few years, how about we give the death penalty to the master illegal criminals that subjugated us to a medical experiment and lied about it and notoriously lied about it? Do they not get the death penalty? If we're really gonna have a serious conversation of bringing back capital punishment, that would be on the top of the list. That would be on the top of the list. Because if we did that, holy crap, you would definitely see a change from the top down. If we capitally punish the top master criminals that walk among us, the Wall Street thugs, the people in the White House, the people in Congress, the illegal bankers, the corrupted CEOs, if we punish them for the heinous crimes that they have committed and actually punish them in a way that shows that we give a shit about the legal system, holy crap, you'll see a decrease in crime. But we don't do that. We don't do that. Why? Again, because we need to punish the poor people. Poverty is the real legal crime, according to the top 1%. You being poor is a criminal offense, and that is why they have to find ways to keep you in line, to keep you working, to, again, manipulate you. As George Carlin said in his stand-up, they want you to be smart enough to work the clogs and gears of the machinery that keeps the 1% afloat, but not smart enough to figure out this crap, to figure out that you're being scammed purposely. The reason that the crime rate is so high is because the economic system has put us into a desperate state where people are committing crimes. They have no other feasible options. They're getting screwed at their jobs. They're getting laid off at mass rates. High unemployment is still skyrocketing. No matter how much they tell you the economy is great, it's not. People are working 4 or 5 jobs to keep a roof over their head, and they're barely making rent. But no, let's just find another tactic to penalize people for inconvenience because you didn't get to work. Let's give the death penalty, again, let's give the death penalty to people that just are not working. Hey, you're not functioning in society? All right, get lost. Like, are we going down the Charles Darwinism trap? Are we now going to line people up with a shotgun and say, hey, are you good enough for society? No? Okay, bang. How about you? Are you good enough for society? Okay, you're a firefighter. Okay, we'll keep you aligned. How about you? Oh, you're a mother of 3? Well, you're not technically working. Bam. Are we going to that? Are we getting to that point? Because that's this downward spiral that starts with something like this. And I don't think this guy understands that because, again, he's just putting this self-interestly because he had a minor inconvenience. And even he said, it's no biggie for me. So why even bring this to attention? Well, because it's clickbait. It's exactly what it is. It's clickbait. People are going to be watching this and thinking how absurd this is. I'm covering it right now. So yes, it is clickbait, dumbass. You suggesting the death penalty because you had a minor inconvenience is indeed clickbait. Oh my God. What a smug, arrogant piece of crap. It's just, it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And by the way, you know, it's not just the addicts that are causing petty theft. There's people out there that can't afford to, to feed their kids and keep a roof over their head, and they're homeless and they're desperate. And when desperate times like runs a measure, that's when crime rate skyrockets. That's when people, their animal instincts come in and they just realize that I need to feed them no matter what cost. So I'm going to break into this house. I'm going to steal from, this person and then sell off the parts. Like, I'm going to do anything I can to feed people. I'm going to feed my family. I'm going to feed my kids. I'm going to feed myself. Like, when people are that desperate and we have half the country in a state of failure, like the entire United States and basically North America is a failed, it's a failed country. It's a failed continent because of how desperate, how low we have set ourselves. And all of this can be resolved if we bother to actually recognize people, fight for the working class, and tweak the economy for the greater good. But we don't do that. We don't do that because we have master criminal thugs that are overruling us and are preaching the exact same thing this guy is preaching. That, hey, if you're too poor to be part of society, if you're not a goody two-shoes and continuing to be an oppressive slave to our regime, then you don't deserve to live, period. That's how it really goes.